The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
This is Talkin Cowboys. Streaming live from Dallas Cowboys training camp in Oxnard, California.
Pollard streaks in. Touchdown. Parsons has sacked it. Prescott keeps it, and he bangs it in for the touchdown.
And now your hosts, Isaiah Stanback, Nick Harris, John Machota, and Kyle Yeomans.
It's time for a training camp edition of Talkin Cowboys, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys, live here from Oxnard, California, as today we begin week number 2 of training camp 2023. We've got John Machota, Nick Harris, and then for the first time here in 2023, we welcome Isaiah Stanback.
Hello, KY.
What's going on, buddy?
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Appreciate it, man.
How was the trip out?
Trip was good, man. It was chill. Watched a little movie, cooled out. I didn't take a nap. I was right by the bathroom. You can't sleep when you're right by the bathroom.
Absolutely not.
No. Between the smell and people bumping you, it's a bad combo. It's a bad combo.
You said movie. You mean film, right? Like you were watching film on the way up, right?
Oh yeah, but film's just embedded in there. I kind of just have a direct connection to
Sure.
the film. You always keep me updated anyway, KY.
Ethernet, yeah.
Bam.
You got the connection
That's
all the way
it. The
through.
Wi-Fi 6.
Ooh,
Yeah,
very
that's that
nice.
new right there.
There you go. Well, we're glad to have you back. We're glad to for the first time you guys have met,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with your work.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. We're gonna have some fun.
Yeah,
No
absolutely.
doubt. This is going to be a lot of fun because today, gentlemen, the pads come on. The physicality is back, and training camp. I mean, it's been great. It really has, but it can really begin today. And there's so much to talk about with Mozzie Smith putting the pads on. I think this offensive line is a question mark right now, and if they can put the pads on, maybe they have a better week this week than they did a week ago. And still no Zach Martin. So I want to start with the biggest storyline that you have on your mind. And I'm going to call this just pick one. So each of you will pick one, and I'll give one in a minute. I'll start with you, John. Biggest storyline going into week 2.
I mean, I hate to just go back to Mozzie Smith because you mentioned him, but I mean, we're going back to when he was drafted. I want to see him in pads, in full pads, and this is your first chance to finally get to see that. And really because of the fact that as loaded as this defense is, that run defense is what I look at as the question mark. And so how much is he going to be able to do? I mean, I don't expect him to be thrown in with the ones, but I want to see what he's able to do. It's a little disappointing that Zach Martin's not out here. Wanted to see it go against him, but really, for me, it's in the trenches, both sides of the run game, and that for me, that starts with Mozzie Smith, just because we haven't got to see him in a Cowboys uniform with pads on.
I'm looking at the depth of the offensive line, especially with Zach Martin not being here. What are the guys that step up and fill in for him? And then also, who are the guys that are rotating in and showing good work? We've seen a lot of Josh Ball. We've seen a lot of Matt Farniok, Matt Waletzko. So which of those guys can get going and find their stride this week once the pads get on and it gets a little bit more physical?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of you, Nick. I kind of want to see what this running game is going to look like. That's going to be the heartbeat of this team. So if these guys can't figure out exactly what their 1-2 or 1-2-3, I don't care, whatever combo they want to throw. They watched the Crawford fight the other night, or Errol Spence. Let's not talk about that. But but they need to figure that out, because if they don't have that as their foundational pillar, this team's gonna have some issues on offense, because everything else revolves around that. So I'm interested to see what the offensive line is doing, and how these running backs are going to kind of work their way into this new system.
And I'll take the wide receivers, because we've seen Jalen Tolbert have a great first week of camp, and we've seen guys like Brandon Cooks. You have Dennis Houston out there. You have CeeDee Lamb. I want to see them continue to have some success, because it looked like on Saturday they had a step up and they had really a great practice. I want to see them continue that, especially Jalen Tolbert, when the physicality's back, when these corners are able to come up and jam at the line of scrimmage and provide a little bit of a rub before the release, and then you have something to go off of there. So I want to see the receivers continue the trajectory that they're on before we really can crown these guys as the saviors of camp. And Jalen Tolbert as right now, who's been probably one of the best to look at. But you mentioned responsibility, Isaiah, and I know with a new play caller, things can get dicey at training camp, but things have looked like they've at least come together early for Mike McCarthy as the play caller. Have you seen anything specifically that with this new West Coast, Texas Coast, whatever you want to look at it, I want to know about the concepts because you've run those concepts previously. Yeah. I want to know what you've seen from some of the stuff that we've looked at in terms of camp and practice so far and how it's affected this offense.
So I'm very familiar with the West Coast style offense. West Coast, they call it Texas Toast, or whatever they want to call it.
Toast?
I'm calling it Texas Toast, if that's what they want to call it. Okay. I'm going to call it. So Texas Toast offense.
Self-opponent by Isaiah Stanback.
Exactly. That's you can trademark that. It's very simplistic. It's very easy. It's very concept-based. So they're able to get in and out of the huddle. Everybody has full clarity as to what it is that they're supposed to be doing. The route concepts are 2 or 3 man route concepts. So guys are not running out there trying to figure out what kind of combination of a route they have to run. Do have to make any adjustments versus coverage? You know what you have, and they're making the reads very easy for Dak, where he pretty much picks one side or the other based upon what the defense is presenting. So it's going to allow for those guys to play fast. It's going to allow for them to have a bolt of confidence when they step to the line of scrimmage and be able to execute their assignments, because it's really the same plays out of different formations, add motions, add shifts, all those type of things, and it looks more complex to the defense. But for them, they'll be able to run it in their sleep. What
have you seen, Nick? Has that benefited anybody or has that hurt anybody in terms of this offense?
It definitely benefits Dak Prescott because if you're simplifying what this offense is, then it simplifies his job and it simplifies the receiver's job as well. So whenever they can get on the same page as quick as possible, you mentioned it, getting out of the huddle really quick and making sure everyone knows what their assignment is right off rip, that helps Dak at the end of the day.
When you look at it, John, helping Dak is always going to be the number one priority, right? And so that seems like it's all good and well, but there have been concepts of this used in the past, and when Kellen Moore was here. What makes this different that now Mike McCarthy's the one that's calling the plays?
Yeah, I think from just being around, talking to the players, and what they've said is talking about their confidence, like you mentioned, Isaiah, like they just look at it as one of those things where you don't have to think as much, they can play faster. And again, today having the pads come on, that's something I'm looking forward to seeing is how much does that all kind of mesh together, especially when you got a new guy in Brandon Cooks. Yeah. Like how does he fit with CD and Michael Gallup, and then obviously what we've seen from Tolbert so far looks like he's going to make a second-year jump. So kind of all of that together, let's see how crisp that looks, because honestly what it all comes back to, everyone's going to point to is the 15 interceptions that gets brought up ad nauseum. Yep. And I think it's pretty obvious that they've talked about players that, you know, some of that has been some miscommunication, some tip balls and things like that. Mm-hmm. And those are the type of things that we'll be able to see, you know, right. Those miscommunications, things like that. And if they can clean that up and you can take that number down, which if you look at Dak's career he has, then I think everything on the offense will figure itself out.
Right. Did you like running the West Coast?
Absolutely.
Concepts?
Absolutely. It's easy. I don't know if fans don't want to hear that, because fans want to hear complex and all this, you know, very diverse. It's going to be that, but that doesn't mean that the route, I mean, there's 9 routes, right? There's 9 foundational routes. And when you can go out there and give concepts and guys know exactly what my route is and say, hey, it's not for me to try to make this thing work. It's based upon the coverage. If I'm open, he's going to hit me, right? And I know based upon the coverage when I step to the line of scrimmage whether or not there's a high probability of me getting the ball or not. So it just really simplifies things, and I loved it because they literally come up to the line of scrimmage, look one way, nope, look one way, yep, all right, and you know exactly where to go with the ball. And then there's always 3 levels to most of the concepts, where there's a deep, intermediate, and check down.
So Brian Schottenheimer said the other day, he talked about the footwork. Like, how big is that for a quarterback, the footwork in a West Coast?
It's really big, especially in the shotgun.
Okay.
Especially in the gun. Back in the day, West Coast, most of the guys were underneath center, and it was 1, 2, 3, and you were kind of finding your rhythm. When you're in the gun, you have to really work to set your feet, because you're kind of lazy back there, right? You're standing up, you're kind of comfortable, you're chilling, you can survey everything from 6 yards back, and if you get lazy with your feet, those quick throws, they really become inconsistent. So you have to be accurate. Your accuracy stems from your feet. So Dak's gonna have to do a great job of catching the ball from the gun, getting his feet set, stop and pop. If you're running screens, you gotta get it out your hand quick. Most of the concepts are 3 steps, which is from under center. So from gun, it's catch and throw. So it's really catch, set your feet, and get the ball out. So his hips are going to have to be in position. His feet are going to have to be right. Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of balls kind of be inaccurate.
So you mentioned wide receivers knowing their responsibility and how that helps the offense. You mentioned, getting the ball out quick. That's going to bode well for an offensive line. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody that this doesn't bode well for on offense, having these West Coast, concepts in general? Is maybe the run game? Is that where this suffers a little bit?
Not really. I just think that
There's got to be a downside. I mean, there's a pro to everything, and there's a con to everything.
For sure. I mean, so release point from a quarterback's perspective is going to be important and Dak doesn't have that issue. He doesn't have a low release. But you're going to start seeing a lot of teams start being more focused about either I get a heck of a rush right off the back or I'm going to have to just jump and get my hands up. So tip balls does become a concern because now teams are going to start jumping up and getting their hands up because they know the ball's coming out quick. The other thing is a lot of trap-type defenses. A lot of defenses where it looks like one coverage and they're disguising something and they're going to come in and roll into a zone. So where he was going to say it was a tight end, quick stick route or a 5-yard out route. Well, versus cover 3, the guy clears out on the outside, you hit your tight end all day long on the outside. Well, they'll start running traps where the cornerback will act like he's going into cover 3 and then come back, and then all of a sudden it's a 2, and he's knocking the mess out of your tight end, right? So you got to he has to watch a lot of film because people are going to start trying to trick him, after probably the first couple games of the year.
I think it was interesting that Mike McCarthy really emphasized how he wants to get the play call in quicker because of that, so that Dak can get up there and get time to diagnose kind of everything that's going on pre-snap because of that extra time, because of exactly what you're saying, that there could be multiple times before the ball's even snapped that they're changing things on defense, and you have to kind of react to that. So that'll be interesting to kind of.
And talking about the run game is going to be able to open up a lot more in this offense as well, and just being able to have it be more fluid as the game goes on and as the season goes on. You're talking about film. As the season goes on, there's going to be a lot of things that they succeed on weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are not going to work 15, 16, 17. So being able to have an effective run game, that's going to help a lot. I know me and Isaiah talked about it quite a bit last night. How does this run game help this offense? And I think that's a big question mark.
Do you think they can have an established run game?
I think they can. I think they can with Tony Pollard, but there's going to have to be another guy that can be established as well.
Who do you think that guy is right now?
It's a great question, Kyle. That's a great question.
Might not be
Your
on the
guess
roster
is
yet.
as good as mine.
Maybe.
Might not be on the roster.
You could point at any ball carrier on that roster, and I'd say, okay, like I see your reasoning. You could look at anybody that's not on the roster and be like, okay, I see your reasoning. So it's a great question. That's something that I would like to see answered this week.
That's the best thing about the preseason is that sometimes these preseason games can be boring, but I'm looking forward to that running back position, who is Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, Ronald Jones, who can step into that role. As I've said this before, there's just too much riding on this season. If one of those guys doesn't fill in that number 2 spot, I mean, they've shown just look at last year, the guys that they've gone after when they've needed to fill a spot. So that's always a possibility. And as we're seeing across the league, it's not like people are paying running backs a ton of money right now.
Yeah. No. And, I mean, you bring it up. I mean, safety position 2 years ago, Malik Hooker signed him in training camp because they looked around and said, we needed another safety in here. We need somebody to go over the top, and he's still on your roster. I think he's had a great camp so far. Last year, you needed somebody to provide a jolt from special team standpoint. Brought in Kevontae Turpin. You brought in a new kicker after training camp last year. I mean, you had a whole kicking competition, which, by the way, that apparently gets started today via John Fossil. So,
but then even during the training camp last year, they needed a linebacker, got Anthony Barr. During the season, needed a defensive tackle, got Hankins. Got T.Y. Hilton when they needed a wide receiver. So, yeah, I mean, while I'm obviously focused on the players that are out here, don't think for a second that they won't go out and make a move. If they, like I said, there's just too much riding on this season.
I want to know if you're breaking any news here.
No.
I mean,
this
that would
makes
be
sense.
fun, though.
You'd want to see you want to see these running backs and see what you have from them. You don't want to all of a sudden go in another direction. You want to see them get out there before at least with pads on. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, and of course that getting started today I think provides a little bit of clarity, but until other teams are trying to take your running backs down, you're not going to really get a true test of who's carrying the football and how they're going to be in the regular season until we get into preseason games. But kind of along those same lines, I do have my concerns on the offensive line. We talked about it a little bit up at the top of the show. I want to talk about that when we come back after this first break. Is the offensive line the one weak spot in this Cowboys roster right now? And is that somewhere that the Cowboys should address before going into the regular season? When we come back with more Talkin Cowboys right after this.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Are you ready to take coffee off your grocery list forever? Black Rifle Coffee Club is here to help. As a Coffee Club member, you'll get your favorite coffees roasted, packaged, and shipped to your door free of charge on your preferred schedule. Set it, forget it, and never run low on coffee again. Members also get exclusive deals on coffee, products, and discounts from partner brands. Ease your mind and let Black Rifle worry about your coffee supply. Go to blackriflecoffee.com to join the coffee club today.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys, and now he's on his phone on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't-stop-banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
Welcome back into Talkin Cowboys, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company. This portion of Talkin Cowboys is brought to you by Quaker Oats, the super trusted superfood. Quaker Oats, the official oatmeal sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. I had some Quaker Oats this morning for breakfast out of the hotel lobby. It was fantastic.
Shameless plug.
It's shameless, honestly. It was fantastic. I love me some oatmeal in the morning. Do you have to do up your oatmeal?
I'm a brown sugar and raisins or craisins guy.
Okay,
really.
see, I put raisins in mine.
Yeah, I need a little substance.
Little something.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, same.
Yeah.
Just without the
little
raisins,
Black Rifle
craisins.
coffee and Quaker
Sorry.
Oats. We are the morning show. How about that? All right, I mentioned offensive line. I want to start with the defense first. I mean, not everything can be handy-dandy. Everything's sunshine and rainbows. We've got overcast clouds today. But in terms of the defense specifically, is there a weak spot on this defense that you've looked at through the first week of camp that needs to see a step up going into week number 2?
Not through the first week camp. I go back to the run defense. If we'll see a lot of that today once the pads come on, I'll be able to get a better judge of it then. But nothing through the first week that I really thought the defense to the first 5 practices has been pretty dominant.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, if you're a fan coming to some of these practices, you probably don't get the real feel for Micah Parsons because of the fact that he has to just run by the quarterback. He can't really, bring the quarterback, which is smart. You don't want him tackling Dak Prescott. But, the run defense is the only part of this team. Everything else on that defense looks like it's going to be elite. So, and maybe the run defense will be too.
We've gotten a really good chance to see the depth of this defense, specifically at safety with Donovan Wilson and Israel Mukamu going out. I guess the answer would be maybe the depth at safety, but it hasn't been. Marquise Bell has been fantastic. Tyler Coyle had an interception a couple days ago. So I like the depth at safety. The depth I would like to see a little bit more is at linebacker, just because there's a lot more inexperience in that room. You have Damone Clark, who's coming into his second year, but it feels like almost his first year. We were talking about it with Dan Quinn, and he said last year was more of a red shirt with him just because, coming in with the injury and getting him up to speed and all of that. So, this is Damone Clark 100% healthy for the first time. Then you also got DeMarvion Overshown, who was a straight-up rookie, or a true freshman, I guess you would say. So yeah. I would like to see the depth in that room a little bit more and see how reliable it is, and I guess that's something we'll look at in preseason.
Man, I mean, when you look at the roster on the defensive side of the ball, it looks like the Monstars, right, on paper. So on paper, they look amazing. It really just comes down to the chemistry. And we know from, the last few years that they have built upon that since Dan Quinn has touched down. And I'm looking forward to seeing that continue to grow. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the young bloods come in and really add their element into it. But that interior defensive line is always going to be my question mark, because when you have a roster like the Dallas Cowboys do on defense, the one spot that you're going to attack is say, screw it, we're going to run the ball. We're just going to run it, right? Because passing it is a bad situation for us, right? We can't drop back. They're going to get to us. They're going to blitz, whatever it might be. They don't have to blitz. They get home with 3 or 4 guys. So you're going to attack them on the ground. So do they have that answer on the interior defensive line? Are those guys going to be impactful? Big Hankins is back. Awesome. Big Mozzie, we're going to see what he can do, right? So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, because every other spot is really solid. I mean, like to your point, if you had to go beyond that, linebacker is a little shallow. Outside of that, they have safeties that can fill in those linebacker roles. Yeah. So that's not even a big worry for me. So it really comes down to that interior defensive line.
I'll piggyback off that really quick. This is the prove it week for Mazi Smith. Since he's come in the building, he said, yeah, just, get at me when the pads come on. Well, the pads are on, and you're the first-round pick. You were brought in to provide an immediate help. So let's see it in action. Let's see that strength on display.
Does it make you feel any better, the fact that you have Jonathan Hankins, though, as kind of that mentor? I put out a tweet the other day where it feels like every level of the playmakers that are youthful playmakers have an experienced veteran to learn from, and it's kind of that combination. And I think that's part of what plays into the excitement with this Cowboys roster. With Mazi Smith, it's Jonathan Hankins. Bringing him back was a huge retainment from last year's team, not only because, he statistically made that run defense better himself, but now you've got a young buck like Mazi Smith that's coming up and continuing to get better underneath him. Do you feel like that'll provide more confidence for him going into his first day of padded practice, and then, of course, further along in the training camp?
Yeah, for sure. But he's also a first-round pick. The expectations, he knows what they are.
Sure.
They're obviously as high as they get. And you mentioned safety earlier. Look at defensive tackle. There's a long gap there between when they've made some significant, investments in that position. You can almost go back to Jay Ratliff for how long it's been since they've really had like an elite defensive tackle. And so that's why it's so exciting to just see what Mazi can do. And it's almost like you don't want to put too much on him like the first week, because he's a first-round pick and you're expecting him to come in here and tear things up and look really good, and especially with Zach Martin not being out there. But Hankins helps, no question. But yeah. I think being a first-round pick, there is that all eyes are on you, that, hey, there are high expectations for me to come in here and play well.
What are those expectations like as a player, Isaiah, whenever you go in and you can feel the eyes on you, but it's different? You had eyes on you in Michigan. You were one of the bigger brands of college football, but it's different whenever you're in the NFL, no matter if it's the Cowboys or whoever else it ends up being.
Yeah, and I can't speak for him, but I do know that from the team's perspective, as far as teammates, that there's an adjustment period, and that's what the camp is for. That's what the preseason is for. So even if he doesn't come out and absolutely kill it in these first, couple weeks of practice, it's like, all right, let me see him in the game, right? And you give those guys the opportunity to get their feet underneath them, to gain their confidence, to adjust to the speed of the game, adjust to the size of the game, and then find their way. The higher the pick, the less tolerance people have for, for time span with that window of time. But I don't think guys are going to be tripping. Guys are definitely going to have their antennas up, seeing what he can do. But when you kind of put the spotlight on top of yourself, he's a double spotlight. He had one spotlight because he's a first-round pick, and then he put the other spotlight in from the other angle. He's like, wait till the pads come on. So, well, like you said, the pads are on. We're going to see.
Prove it. It's a double spotlight day for Mazi Smith. Maybe that's the name of the show, double spotlight day. I think there's elements to Mazi that I'm excited to see, but I said it at the top of the show. This is an offensive line that, if we're talking about a weak spot on the roster, especially without Zach Martin, with that being said, I do think Zach Martin will be back in time for week 1. Let's not get carried away. But I think this is an offensive line that if one guy goes down, you're in trouble. And so what do you need to see from the offensive line this week, John, to really build your confidence going into at least a padded practice or two, and then going into the preseason?
I really want to see one of these reserve offensive linemen step up. And when I talk about that, the number one guy is Josh Ball.
Yeah.
And during the break, I brought this up because I wanted to make sure I was accurate on these. This is the big thing with me, with a Josh Ball, a Matt Waletzko, guys like that, is that one of the biggest successes Mike McCarthy had in Green Bay was finding quality offensive linemen not in the first round. We're talking, we go back, you're looking at guys like TJ Lang, 4th round.
Yep.
You go, let me see here. Hold on. Let me bring this up. David Bakhtiari, 4th round. J.C. Treader, 4th round.
Those are two really
Corey
big names.
Lindsley, 5th round. It's not like he just had one. Now, since he's been the head coach, they obviously got an undrafted guy in Terrence Steele that stepped up, but now they need another one of those. And Waletzko and Josh Ball are the two guys I feel everyone's looking at. And Ball has been given every opportunity with Martin being out. So if you don't have something there, it kind of goes back to the running back thing. Does that mean that you have to go out and maybe sign a veteran at that position?
What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, like you said, one of these reserves, you're going to have to find some reliability there, especially with Zach being out as he is right now. There's going to be a time this season when one of these 5 go down with an injury. You know, I don't want to wish that on anyone, but that's just the way a 17-game NFL season is right now. And how are we able to plug a guy in and have reliability in those areas? So you look at Josh Ball, you look at Chuma Edoga, he's got a lot of snaps as well. Farniok Weletsko. Does anyone really feel really comfortable about having that guy start a playoff game or start, for a foreseeable future? I don't think the answer is yes right now.
Isaiah, you've told me before, this is just our side conversations. And, of course, Talkin Cowboys Nation, this is a friend group. We're all friends here. You've told me that if the Cowboys can't run the ball, none of this is going to work. Yeah. None of this West Coast, all that stuff that sounded great in the first segment, It's not going to work.
Facts.
Does that start with the offensive line?
Yes.
It's got to, right?
Yes. I believe this offensive line has depth. They don't have proven depth. And that's what pads are for. That's what preseason's for. Continuity is absolutely everything on the offensive line. You can be a lesser individual, but if you can work in chemistry with somebody else, right, really well, at the guard position specifically, then you're okay. You don't have to be an amazing individual guard because you're not on an island, right? But how you communicate, how you guys work, it's a dance, right? The center and right tackle, you're stuck in between those guys and, or whatever, left side, whatever you want to look at, and you have to figure out how we can work together to move these large humans off the ball, right? All we're trying to do is create gaps and create seams. I don't need to be able to grab. I mean, there's going to be times where you got to be able to lock up on somebody and drive them back. But let's be honest, there's been some successful guys that have been on previous rosters that weren't world movers on that front, right? But they worked really well with the guys that are next to them. So that's really all they're looking for. Now, would Cowboys Nation be happy if they went out and got somebody who was an absolute dog? Yes, but guess what? That would have happened already if there was somebody out there, right? And the free agents that were out there got snatched up. Sean Payton took advantage of that day one.
Yeah, he did.
Now it's just a matter of saying, okay, who's going to step up and who's going to fit best together? And these guys are going to have the opportunity to figure that out.
Do you have anybody that you think could step up? That question's open to anybody. Because you mentioned Josh Ball. I don't think I would put him at the top of that list as a guy that I expected to come up. He's going to get the opportunities. He's in a phone booth at guard, and we've seen him at tackle and struggle to tackle. He's had an up-and-down week this week. I don't know if I feel confident in him even in a phone booth to get the job done. Maybe it's an Awesome Richards. Maybe it's a Chuma Edoga. Maybe it's a Matt Weletsko. But is anybody on your mind in terms of who could step up in that regard?
Absolutely not. When they talk about your top 5, getting your best 5 out there with Zach Martin, they have their best 5 when they have Zach Martin, and there's a significant drop-off after that. Now, can somebody step up during, some of these practices? Can somebody step up during the preseason? Sure, but as I sit here today, no, I do not feel confident
that
after
terrifies
that.
me. Absolutely terrifies me.
I mostly agree with John 100%. I will say, though, as a caveat, I'm excited to see what Matt Weletsko can do this week just because last week was a little bit weird for him. He came in, he was battling a sickness, missed a day of practice, was rotated in at times. So I want to see him at full speed, especially with the pads on this week, and then we'll go from there. But mostly agree with him. There's a significant drop-off after the top 5.
Yeah, you're not replacing ZM, but no. I do want to see Weletsko. I want to see him. He hasn't had an opportunity to really show himself yet, and I'm hopeful that he will have that opportunity now at this camp. So put the pads on and see what he does.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. Awesome Richards, but he's mostly going to be at the tackle spot. I want to see Chuma Edoga slide inside because Stephen Jones has talked about him very highly on a couple of occasions. I'm interested to see if maybe he fits that mold, maybe more so than Josh Ball. But overall, it's not a comfortable situation. It's a little of an uneasy feeling for the offensive line because that's where this whole thing starts. That's where it goes. And so maybe you take some of those defensive linemen we talked about, maybe you put them on the trade block and then have some conversations. But overall, you got to find some way, somehow to shore up your offensive line in order for this entire West Coast scheme to work out in favor. So that'll continue to be a focus point. But I do want to say, Let's end on a high note. When we come back, we're going to introduce John to a nice little Talkin Cowboys tradition. It's time to give out some smelly stickers. We'll talk about the tradition. We'll introduce you and tell you what it's about, and then we'll give out some smelly stickers for week 1 when we come back with more Talkin Cowboys.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Black Rifle Coffee Company serves premium coffee to people who love America. When you drink Black Rifle coffee, you are directly supporting veterans, law enforcement, and first responders in your community. Black Rifle's expert roasters love coffee almost as much as Texas loves football, so it makes sense that America's Coffee partnered with America's team. Go online at blackriflecoffee.com and fuel up with the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys. That's blackriflecoffee.com to fuel up today.
Want to use the Cowboys locker room's favorite products? Check out the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. Right now, you can get the Jack Black Playmaker, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The Playmaker includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized Intense Therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word Cowboys. The Jack Black Playmaker, $10, free shipping.
Welcome back into Dear Doctor, the show where I answer life's questions with an ice-cold can of Dr. Pepper. Sheila, let's hear from our next caller, would you?
Dear Doctor, my friend supported me during a tough time, but what's the right gift that says, thanks for being a shoulder to cry on?
Okay, this one's easy. I say give her a delicious Dr. Pepper. Nothing says, thanks, girl, better than a one-of-a-kind soda. Yes, any Dr. Pepper flavor will do. Now, just a reminder that I don't need to be a real doctor to know that Dr. Pepper is the one you deserve.
Welcome back to the final segment of Talkin Cowboys, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys. This segment is brought to you by Invisalign, the official smile of the Dallas Cowboys. John Machota, Nick Harris, Isaiah Stanback. I'm Kyle Yeomans here from Oxnard, California. What a week it has been. We are going into week number 2 here in training camp. We finally have Isaiah along. We've got one of our friends, Linda Wells, walking by us as the coaching staff walks out. See if we can get on camera a little bit. There you go. That's somebody we need to get on the show, no doubt. But the Mike McCarthy just walked by. We're getting ready for practice number 1 with pads. And so the excitement level, I think, is high today to get to see these things. But I want to take one final look back to week 1. I want to give out some smelly stickers. And I said this is John's first time. It's also Nick's first time for smelly stickers. But Isaiah, I want you to explain it for everybody at home. What is the smelly sticker and how did it begin?
So usually smelly stickers usually takes place after a victory, right? After a nice little victory, okay, we bring the helmet out, okay, and Kyle brings a nice little scratch and sniff stickers, okay? And we look at the stickers and we attach a significance to the sticker to a player or coach, right? That had an amazing job, did an amazing job at the game, or they showed up as a coordinator or a coach, whatever it might be, but they get the highest accolades, highest credit from us, attaching their name to the smelly sticker, and we give the reasoning for the sticker, right? And then we scratch it, and we smell. Some of us do that, but no, it's just a way for us to give kudos. It's just like the old school helmets back in the day, right? Your coach sits around and says, "Hey, good job, Nick. Here's the reason why you get a sticker." We do the same thing for all the players around here and coaches.
All right, you want to start us off on who got your smelly sticker for week 1 of training camp here in 23?
All right, so I wasn't physically here, but I've been reading up and I've been getting a lot of the words, and the word is Jalen Tolbert is doing his thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and give Jalen Tolbert a smelly sticker. I don't have it physically here.
We'll get it for next week.
Yeah,
I got you.
But I was critical of him last year, and I understand the pressure that he was under. I'm looking forward to him taking that step, and it sounds like he has done so in his first part of camp. Pads, come on. Now let's see if you can still produce out there. So I'm excited to see that. But for now, smelly sticker goes to Jalen Tolbert.
First smelly sticker of 23 going to Jalen Tolbert. Tell me who had that one on the betting odds. Yeah. Chris is in the back. Do you have a mic over there? You don't, do you? Oh, you do have a mic. I was going to ask you for your smelly sticker, too, if you had a mic.
Right now?
Yeah.
Give me me a second.
Okay, I'll come back to you. All right, Nick, what do you think?
I'm gonna have to go Nashawn Wright. There's been a lot of injuries in the secondary in this first week, and Nashawn has been able to step in, and he has been fantastic. He had a huge interception on a ball that was maybe underthrown by Dak a little bit, but it was a fantastic play. He's showing his length out there on the boundary and giving some reliable depth in that area. We're talking about having any concerns in depth. There's none in the secondary, so he's done a good job.
He's definitely drilled it into our heads that he's going to have a fantastic week and fantastic training camp. What you think?
So Isaiah hit it on the head. It's no question. Number one on the list is Tolbert for sure. But I'll go Jalen Moreno-Cropper just because I didn't really have a ton of expectations coming into the first week, and he showed up on a couple different situations, and so he kind of stood out. Now, if you want to talk about somebody, when we were talking about Mozzie earlier, how it's like he plays a position that, maybe he'll do some things that might not stand out to the naked eye or whatever. I'll tell you what, I have not seen anybody make any plays out here when Stephon Gilmore's been around them.
Ooh.
So, I mean, he hasn't had any interceptions, but there's nobody making any plays around him either. I don't know. I'm really excited to watch him play this season because I know he's getting up there in age, but just the way he takes care of himself, the way he goes about his business, I mean, he looks like one of those guys you could give it to, but again, he doesn't have the flashy interception or anything that jumps off the tape yet, but he's been impressive out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love his demeanor. We got to talk to him last night just a little bit in passing here at camp, and I mean, just the way that he carries himself, he has got so much confidence, but it's a quiet confidence, which I love. And I think both him and Trayvon Diggs both share that trait. And even yesterday he was saying, I spent the off day just kind of hanging out, just relaxing, rejuvenating, getting ready, because he was like, it's a big week ahead. You put on the pads, it's going to hurt a little bit more. Jake Ferguson said that as well. I love that for Stephon Gilmore. All right, Beamer.
Okay, mine was going to go to Steele because he worked his ace off.
His peach off since we're doing smelly stickers.
Peach,
His
donkey. Peach is off this off season to get back because it's only been 8 months, I believe, since his injury.
Yep.
And from a standpoint at his position, that's my smelly sticker, Terrence Steele.
Yeah, Haley Sutton did a great story on Special Edition about Terrence Steele, and she said that the average offensive lineman return time is 11 months from an ACL injury, and he was back in 8. I mean, that's fantastic. And Mike McCarthy talked about the work ethic and what he's done day in, day out, making sure he's in the building, making sure he's going through all of his responsibilities. I think that's a good one, very good one. I'm going to go a little bit cliche, a little bit mainstream. You guys have had some great names. I'm going to give it to Micah Parsons because it doesn't matter if it's training camp with pads, training camp without pads, regular season, of course, with pads. He still finds a way to get in the backfield. And so I'm going to give it to Micah Parsons. He had a great practice on Thursday where he had back-to-back sacks. He was in the backfield quite a bit again, just breathing down Dak's neck on Saturday. He's Micah Parsons. And I'm going to give my first smelly sticker to number 11 as he continues to just wreak havoc on backfields. I can't wait to see what he can do this year. All right.
Real quick, and more importantly, for our jobs, phenomenal quote. He almost never disappoints when he talks to us, and he did not disappoint this week either.
Honestly, for real, Isaiah, if you haven't watched it yet, go back and watch Micah's press conference last week. It'll make you excited to get up and do your job just in general. I mean, forget football as I knock a water bottle off.
You're hyped.
But I'm hyped. I'm knocking stuff over. This is great. But, yeah, no, go back and watch it because it's a lot of fun. Yeah. All right. Before we get out of here. What was that?
You know who does not get a smelly sticker?
Uh-oh.
The marketing team for blowing off right next to us while we're doing this show.
Beamer saying no thank you to the nice little drill that's happening above us.
No,
hey,
I think that's a leaf blower.
It's definitely a leaf
It's
blower.
electric.
Oh, I thought it was a drill. I thought they were just getting after a drill.
It's electric.
It's electric blower above us while we're
Stuff
doing
is
this
falling
show.
from the sky,
So
okay?
I really appreciate the marketing team.
Yeah, that blows.
See what you did there.
Got it. All right, before we get going, bang. Mike Breen. Before we get going, one thing you're looking forward to most, it can't be the answer of going through pads. It's got to be something else. Thing you're looking forward to most going into week 2.
I want to see what Dak Prescott does in terms of spreading the ball around. We've seen him connect on a deep ball with Brandon Cooks, a nice one in the red zone with CeeDee Lamb the other day. I want to see him kind of spread it around to all those guys and then really see if Tolbert is ready for that number 4 spot when the pads come on.
Those are both really good points. I'm going to kind of work around that then. Kevontae Turpin, I want to see how much they integrate him in the offense this week. You know, if he's taken that next step from an off-the-field offensive standpoint, and if he can get some more reps this week. That's definitely something I'm looking at.
I want to see Coach McCarthy expand on this offense. From what I've seen so far, it's very simplistic West Coast, but West Coast can get very complex as well. So as he starts adding in those motions and shifts and personnel groupings, like how do these guys handle it, and how does he expand upon this offense? You necessarily won't see it in the preseason games, right? But it will show up later on in the season. He's still there. That's what they're preparing for. People forget that. As vanilla as stuff might be in the beginning of training camp, they were preparing for a season, so they have to practice those plays now as well.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to the growth again of these young secondary players. I mean, we saw from Wanye Thomas, that's a name we haven't mentioned today, Marquise Bell, Nashawn Wright, we've talked about a couple times. I think the secondary is going to grow now that they can at least press and provide a little bit of physicality at the line of scrimmage. I think it's going to benefit them quite a bit. I think the offensive line is going to benefit from having something to grab onto, but I think I'm most excited to see those corners, to see them come up and challenge some of these wide receivers. And like I said at the beginning of the show, Jalen Tolbert has had a great camp so far. He earned the smelly sticker for a reason. I think all of us could have given Jalen Tolbert a smelly sticker. But if he can't do it against the physicality and the press at the line of scrimmage, then there's going to be another hurdle for him to cover before we get into the regular season. So I want to see how that continues to develop and continues to grow throughout training camp. But, all right, we've got a lot of things going on at training camp. Real quick, plug some of the stuff that you're on, John, so that way Talkin Cowboys fans can watch and listen to you or read your work on The Athletic. Where can they find you?
Yeah, on Twitter, at John Machota, JONMACHOTA. But yeah, The Athletic, if you're not a subscriber, we'd obviously appreciate it if you subscribe. Trying to put up as much content as we can. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Nick?
Yeah, at Nick Harris, DC. We got a lot of stuff coming out on DallasCowboys.com this week, just covering training camp. And we have the Training Camp Hub, too. It's a one-stop shop for all of the stuff that we're doing during training camp. So check that out.
Hey, man, I'm on Stanback on IG. That's where I spend most of my time. I'm not on the X as much as most people are. But yeah, that's where y'all can find me. Y'all hit me up. I'll respond.
Yep. At Kyle_Yeomans, and we're going to have Inside Cowboys Training Camp and Training Camp Live with Isaiah all week long. You better get like a cough drop or something, maybe some like hot tea and honey. You're about to get some work in.
I'm tapped in. Once I tap in, I'm not tapping out to February, baby. Let's go.
Thank goodness. Let's do it. Late February, right? Late February.
Yes.
All right, that's going to do it for us here on Talkin Cowboys. Time for another Talkin Cowboys tradition, the chopper. We got to do this at the end of every episode as we go out, John. You got to do the chopper.
Bass Bros, baby.
WWE.
Bass Bros, baby.
Right? A little wrestling. You're not going to do it? Not going to hop on?
The sweater's too tight.
I'll work it in.
For John Machota, for Nick Harris, for Isaiah Stanback, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long here from Oxnard, California. We'll see you on Wednesday with more Talkin Cowboys.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!